thank you so much. Joining us now live to discuss, Republican Congressman Mike McCaul of Texas. He's the ranking Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, good to see you. The Pentagon says that the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has ordered as many as 8,500 U.S. service members to prepare to deploy to Eastern Europe. CNN's reporting suggests they could be sent specifically to Baltic states or other parts of Eastern Europe. Yesterday, you said that you don't think Putin sees the U.S. as serious about this threat. Will this potential troop deployment, could that change his mind?
Well, I think it helps, and I'm glad the administration is finally listening. We've been urging them to do these joint exercise operations with NATO in these NATO countries like Poland, the Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria. That would be a showing of deterrence. Prior to this, it's been very passive deterrence. And with respect to the 8,500 troops, remember, it's very conditioned on NATO requesting, but secondly, only until after an invasion, which your analyst talked about President Zelensky. His frustration is that whether you're talking about the sanctions or these joint exercises on Russia's western flank, it's all predicated after an invasion when he thinks it should be done before to prevent an invasion from happening in the first place.
Right. Russia is adding to its presence at the Ukrainian border. If Russian forces, even just a few dozen, should cross into Ukraine's sovereign territory, what do you think the president should do? Should he send U.S. troops directly into Ukraine? What do you want him to do, and what is the red line?
Well, Ukraine's not a NATO country. They have a right to self-determination. I don't think the president's going to put troops in Ukraine, and that's why we've been calling for deterrence. Remember, this started in last March. The $200 million being talked about was held up by the White House. It was on the desk last November and just now recently released. I have a bill that I hope will be bipartisan for immediate lethal aid package to Ukraine. But we also have to have a showing of force that Putin understands that this won't come without a high price. And we haven't done that thus far. When you look at the map where the Russian troops are, they're in Belarus. They're doing joint exercises with lethal weapons. It's just north of Kyiv, which is the capital. We see an invasion likely taking place also on the east side of and central where the Donbass region is. And then finally, their other troop deployment is near the Black Sea, near Crimea. I think overall, Putin wants the breadbasket back. He's always wanted Ukraine. I think he sees weakness, particularly after Afghanistan. And a lot of this is about energy and what happened with Nord Stream 2 pipeline, but also his control of the Black Sea and the Mediterranean and the Suez Canal.
So you're asking for tough sanctions to be imposed now before any Russian invasion as deterrence. Now, obviously, those sanctions would hit Russia in the energy sector you talk about, which would immediately cause gas prices to skyrocket. Is that something that you're willing to explain to the American people, that they might need to pay higher natural gas and gasoline prices in order to deter Russia from invading Ukraine?
Well, I think it's an easy explanation. Why did the president waive congressionally mandated sanctions to allow Putin to complete his pipeline into Europe, making them dependent on dirty Russian energy? It seems to me we want to be the largest. To answer your question, because Germany wanted them to let Nord Stream 2 go forward, and they don't want to alienate Germany, which is a key member of NATO. I mean, you know the answer, but just for our viewers, that's the reason why the Biden administration says they didn't do that. That's true. Whereas every other nation in NATO doesn't really want this. The former chancellor of Germany was a chief lobbyist for Gazprom, which is a Russian state enterprise that is completing Putin's pipeline. I think the better strategy, if you want to talk about gas prices, why are we shutting down Keystone Pipeline? Why aren't we? We're the largest exporter of LNG, which is clean natural gas. We could be exporting that to Europe. And that's what most Europeans want. They don't want Putin's pipeline, which makes them vulnerable to Russian aggression. And I think that's the bottom line. We passed that almost overwhelmingly. And Jake, I had an amendment on the National Defense Authorization to strip the presidential waiver. It passed on the House floor unanimously by a voice vote. Now it's been politicized. But I think that would send a deterrent message along with the sanctions to say, look, if you will not stop this aggression, we're going to go forward with sanctions. We'll lift them if you agree not to invade.
The State Department, as you know, is reducing staffing at its embassy in Ukraine and ordering some family members of embassy staff to evacuate. But they're also, the State Department, encouraging Americans who are in Ukraine to leave Ukraine. This is upsetting the Ukrainian government, as you heard from our earlier report. Do you think it's the right move or the wrong move? I can't help but think that it's probably influenced by the fact of what happened in Afghanistan when people said there weren't sufficient warnings for people to get out before the worst happened.
Yeah. Well, I think it does demonstrate how serious the situation is. And I've been briefed on the Russian plan in the classified space. It's very serious. And the timetable is very short. And that's important right now. I think it's a safe measure to protect embassy employees. But it also shows you how serious a threat is coming from Russia right now, that we're anticipating that this very likely could happen. This, Jake, to put it in perspective, would be the largest invasion in Europe since World War II. And to your analyst comments, this is not just about Ukraine in a vacuum. This is about all of our foreign nation adversaries. You know, China is looking at this very closely. President Xi is looking to see if Putin can invade Ukraine and get away with it. He's going to look at Taiwan. The Ayatollah is building a bomb. Kim Jong-un just fired off 2 rockets this month that they claim were hypersonics. This is really a flashpoint now, and it's not just limited to Ukraine.
Congressman Mike McCaul, Republican from Texas. Thank you, sir. Good to see you.